This is how I lost $241,000 in a day. And wait till the end, because at the very end, I'll show you the number one thing that could have been avoided, probably the most easily. The other ones weren't as much, but the one at the end, it was like, bro, what am I doing? Let's tune in. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe while we're here. Like, smash that like button. Let's get it. Let's get it. Share it with your friends if it brings you any value. But, so the other day, Kalani and I were looking at a storage facility that some wholesaler had sent us. And we were looking at it. We flew out. It cost us $6,000 to fly out there. And we ended up getting stuck out in Louisiana because of an ice storm in Dallas. And so we were out there for quite a bit, and that's why it ended up costing us $6,000 between rental car, Airbnb, flights, food, all that shit. And so we were out there. We went and looked at the facility, and it turned out the facility had all the doors needed to be replaced. And I was talking to my friend about it. I was like, "How many doors did you replace on yours?" And he was like, "Oh, I replaced this much." I was like, "Oh shit, you replaced all of them?" He was like, "Yeah, I replaced all the doors." And so when we did that, I was like, okay, so I'll go and replace this many doors, but it's going to cost me $100,000 more than what I anticipated. We anticipated about $120,000 in CapEx for this facility, and it ended up being it was going to be way more than $100,000. It was probably going to be $200,000 over if we had to replace every door. So we were going to be all in for a purchase price of like $700,000, $700,000 or $800,000. We anticipated an overall purchase price of $500,000. And so we called the wholesaler. Kalani calls the wholesaler back and was like, "Hey, after getting all our bids back, like this just isn't going to work. I'm sorry. Is there any way we could renegotiate?" And like we're doing this as soon as we got the bids. And the guy says, no way in hell is that going to happen. And so he's like, "I'm keeping your earnest money." I was like, number one's, all right, fuck you, cunt. Just for the fact that happened, because the dude was in our mastermind. And he tried to sell us a deal that he knew had extra CapEx that he didn't disclose to us and was trying to get us to close faster because he knew he was trying to sell us a bad deal. All right, as a wholesaler, number one thing I do with everything is I disclose everything, because as soon as I sell someone a bad deal and I didn't tell them that something else was going on, your name is burnt, right? And so with me, I was like, oh yeah, so the stupid thing I did here is I signed a non-refundable EMD with this, unless my phase one came back with something. And my phase one is just an environmental report letting me know if the soil's good or anything else needs to happen. And the reason I did that is like, yeah, he's in our mastermind. One of our friends looked at it, said someone a good deal, but like he wouldn't try and entrap us. Like, he was like, he wouldn't try and just fucking offload us a bad deal and then keep our earnest money. I was like, oh yeah, there's no way that's going to happen. Me being naive. And that's exactly what happened. And so then we lose $5,000. So now that's how I lost $11,000 in that one day. And then that same day I had to go drive down, and this is the same day of my meetup, and I'm driving down to Bakersfield to go get a lockout of a house. I talked to code enforcement right before I left Louisiana. And then as I'm coming back from Louisiana, I'm calling them like, "Hey, I'll be there on Thursday. Let's go look at it. I know we got to board it up. You said it's condemned, blah, blah, blah." And I'll go into the story about this later. And I get there, and the entire house had burnt. Like the whole, I don't want to say burnt down, but I mean, it's going to cost us a lot of money to fix up. The house's value is like $240,000. But with that, so the entire house burnt out. We're getting a claim from the insurance company that should cover it all. But if I didn't have insurance, and that's where I came up with because it's like $230,000 value that's kind of like disappeared into thin air. Because like if we didn't have insurance, we'd have been fucked. And then we had those $11,000 in earnest money and travel costs, and both of that happened within a 1 day period, and it sucked. And I hope this shows you that like all this entrepreneurship shit isn't all sunshine and rainbows. You're going to take L's. Hopefully we come out on top on the fire damage property because we have insurance, and it's looking like we will. The wholesale deal, I doubt we'll get our money back. I mean, we don't recoup our travel costs and shit back in the phase one cost anyways. But number one tip, at least when buying big stuff, right? Because we were raising $500,000 to buy this thing. And I was like, all right, never, ever, ever rush yourself into a bad deal. The wholesaler was trying to pressure us to buy it. He's like, oh, it's a good deal. It's a good deal. Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want it? Other people want it. And as soon as we back out, we say something. I was like, hey, bro, whatever. It doesn't work for me. I'm not going to put our investors in a bad deal. And the guy messages us like 12 hours later saying, hey, what were your bids again? So in a nutshell, never sign a non-refundable EMD if your inspection isn't included in that stupid decision on our part. And lesson number 2, when you're screening tenants, make sure they aren't heroin addicts who may light your house on fire. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for joining the Winning Nation. I'll talk to you all soon.